Why is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
They're bringing back firing squads. Did you
What?
see this?
No?
Apparently, they're looking into bringing back firing squads.
Why? Who?
I don't. The government apparently for as a means of execution. Which why don't they bring back any of the cool ways of executing people?
Guillotine?
I was going to say death by chocolate, but I guess guillotine would. Does
Oh.
that count as cool?
Well, I was curious where you were headed with this. I'm like, this doesn't really fit the tone of our show. But if we're, having an off day, that's fine. We're talking about death. So
Right. No.
I don't know. I've always fancied myself to, go the Anne Boleyn route.
Right. How did she go? Guillotine?
Well, Well, no, she had her head chopped off, but she
Okay.
requested a very specific French sword that was very lovely and
Ah,
very sharp, so it was very quick and painless,
I
and
see.
a pain in the ass for Henry VIII and his cronies to find.
Right. I told you my favorite one was a French dignitary who, his final words were pointing out the spelling error in his death warrant.
That's amazing.
That
I mean, that is a man after my heart right
I
there.
know, just,
Why can't he come back and haunt us?
that'd be amazing. That guy get Artie on the
Yeah.
blower. That's who I wanna talk to,
Right?
not somebody telling me we need more echinacea in our diet.
No, I can get that from
Yeah.
CVS these days.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
I did join a cult this week, though.
Oh, well, which one?
The Peloton cult.
Ah, I was gonna say Branch Davidians, but okay. So
No,
you're paying
they're not my
you're
scene.
you're paying someone to yell at you now?
No, they're very encouraging, but it was funny because when they dropped my bike off today, which I've been patiently waiting for, they can't do the full demo anymore because of COVID, but I had to ask them to
Mm.
stay because as I'm someone who doesn't know how to ride a bike, I had
Oh,
no
that's
clue how the
right.
handlebars or the seat was supposed to be, so they had to show me that.
That's
Mhm.
amazing.
But then I did, like, 2 rides, I did, like, a scenic ride and all this other stuff, but then I did Broadway yoga, and I would not recommend Broadway yoga. Like, the class was lovely, the songs were fantastic with the exception of one version of "Think of Me" from Phantom, which maybe it was the Emmy Rossum version, but it wasn't so good. It's definitely not Sarah Brightman and Michael Crawford, I can tell you that much, but
Mm.
your Broadway yoga instructor, when she
I
is
can
an
only
NY
imagine.
when she's an NYU musical theater grad whose parents met in a play in Idaho, and then her dream was to be a star, it's not very zen-like. And when she's
So
singing along, so maybe she'll get discovered.
that's what I was gonna ask does she do the singing or
No, she
what
was singing well, I mean, that it's like the real like, it was Liza, and it was Lin-Manuel, like, the Peloton, like, pays for the real shit, right? So you got
Right,
good
right.
tunes, like, that's part of the cult,
But
so
how
but she was
I
just singing along, she had a lovely voice while she was doing triangle pose, but, uh, it's a little stressful, and, being someone who had a lot of friends in high school who didn't pursue their theatrical dreams or didn't make them, and one who was very, very successful in winning
right.
multiple Tony Awards, but it's
Thanks for
very
listening.
yes, it's kind of sad
Right.
to hear it when you're trying to zen
Mhm.
out, when you're not
I
someone who
just
can zen out anyway.
right, that's I was gonna say, believe it or not, I have never taken a yoga class, but
Shocker.
I know, but seeing you try to reach Zen makes me want to take one with you just to watch this, see what you're
Yes.
trying to achieve that
That would be we would be great in a yoga class together.
let's take a minute and talk about our friends at the Wild Gallery. It's a Native American art gallery in Austin, Texas, but they are shipping anywhere you want across the country. It's been such a difficult, awful year.
Right.
I feel like, I don't know about you, but we're trying to go over and above for gifts and trying to get stuff really special and really memorable. And, I think something like original artwork or an original print is sort of the perfect 2020 holiday gift.
It's beautiful, but it's also so historic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's nothing more American than original Native American art.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, if anything that looks beautiful from a website, in person is going to be pretty stellar. The work is beautiful. It's really lovely.
I also love the way that it's a curated gallery in a really interesting way, that they went out and he found different tribes and different types of artwork, and just such a wide, diverse, even in, like, you would think Native American artwork is a very niche kind of thing, but you see the folks he's found in the different tribes, and it's really nice stuff.
Well, in the curation, like you said, it's very thoughtful. Like, it was a very thoughtful way to pull this together.
And the nice thing too, some of it's really affordable.
Mm-hmm.
You think art gallery, and it sounds like it's going to be out of your price range or anyone's price range. And then you look at this stuff and they've got some really cool prints and other things that are completely affordable. So for more information and to get some really cool artwork for your family and friends this holiday season, check out their website, which is wild.gallery. That's WYLD.gallery. How does one get into the Mortician game? Did you grow up with this?
No, not at all. So for my end, I hadn't even been to a whole lot of funerals, but I'd been married for a really long time. I'd been married for 20 years-ish to an Army guy. And then right before he was to retire, he told us we were getting a divorce. And I was like, oh no. So I had to find like a new career that was sustainable quickly, because I had been a massage therapist. And then I was like, I can't really support kids on that. And, or really too much of anything. So I looked up things that I thought would suit my skill set. And that was on the list. But, I'm weird. Let's go for it.
What skill set exactly?
Well, I was a massage therapist. You're going from one stiff to another. But realistically, though, if I had been younger when this happened, I had probably gone back to school for like counseling and things like that. So when I went into it initially, it was not to do back of the house, which is what they call the prep room and the embalming. I initially thought I was going to be comforting families and doing that kind of thing. But then started college, and weirdly, we'd already bought the house in the town in North Carolina where I live, and it is the only mortuary school in North Carolina. It was 20 minutes from my sight unseen bought house. And I was coming from Alaska. So I was like, I guess I'm just going to, because we were supposed to move together.
Right.
And then we were no longer together. So I was like, I guess I'll just go down there and start living life, yo.
Right.
And I had kids, and I didn't want to move them far from their dad, even though I was really mad at him. So, it was kind of on a whim.
Sure. Kristi, what was your whim that got you into this?
I've always been curious about it, and I'm an antique dealer, and I specialize in kind of the more odd stuff. And there's a lot of like Victorian funeral antiques and mourning jewelry and that kind of thing that I collected and sold over the years, and it just kind of was a natural extension of the interest. And I met Minda. She actually talked me into starting school. I guess I just have the temperament for some of it. For back of the house, that's my thing. I'm not very geared towards the other, but so yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of job security, and it was interesting. So yeah.
What was the biggest surprise about mortuary school?
So much poop, man. Like if we're going to be completely honest about the whole gig,
Please.
it was, you don't hear about that. But Also, when you go through mortuary school, and Kristi can attest to this as well, the bodies that you work on in the labs there are not generally very new. Like you're getting much older specimens. So the stuff you see in school, well, at least where we went, I'm not speaking for everybody, you're looking at a decedent that is at least 5 days past, at least.
Yeah.
And so that was shocking. And again, I didn't really think about the back of the house part of the job. And the first day of my embalming lab when I was in college, I was like, man, if I can do this, I'll be able to finish the program. And then I go in there, and the dude had been dead for a long time, and it looked like the crypt keeper laid out. I'm not even kidding you, laid out on the table. And I was like, this is what they're giving us, embalming one student first day, like way to weed us out.
Yeah.
What is that attrition rate for? Is that the right word? What is the rate of folks not making it to the end of the program?
It's pretty high. I can't give you a percentage, and I actually work in the program now. I run the anatomical donor portion of that. So I do work with the families, and I work with a lot of DSS agents. We do get a large number of what I like to call the hot topic crowd. And we love the hot topic crowd. They're our fan base.
Sure.
Like, we love those girls.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people realize, A, the poop factor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, it is a heavy load of chemistry. It is a heavy load of math. I mean, there's a lot of that goes into it. It's a lot less Elvira than people might think.
So what was it that drew you to the back of the house?
I was all right at it. I was a quilter before. So when we,
Weirdly, that makes total sense.
yeah,
The transition.
I am extremely bossy. And Kristi can attest to this, as I made her go to mortuary school, and I made her be my podcast partner, and I made her surgery and comedy. But in the lab, I was like, I'm not going to be here for 4 hours. Like, let's just do this thing. So I just would learn to do it faster, but I don't really do a whole ton of it now. Like I do some of it, but I'm working kind of, again, the front of the house.
So when you're embalming somebody, how long does that take?
A couple of hours, 3, 4.
Well, it depends on the somebody too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's say you stop for like a snack in the middle. What's the total time?
If you get the difference in this question is if you're embalming what is very commonly known in our industry as a pink old lady, that'll only take you about an hour to an hour and a half. But it's a 1-point injection, no circulatory blockages, nothing crazy, light enough for you to move on one person to move this decedent. That does not take very long. You get someone who is 300 pounds, has multiple blockages. You have to do lots of different injection points. You have to lift different vessels. That could take up to 3 hours. I embalmed someone who passed away from COVID. And not only had he passed away from COVID, and this is my mentor and I had gone and done this, we do what's called trade work. Like a funeral home had hired her, and then she brought me along to assist. And this person was at least 6'2", and he was a larger fellow. And that took us 5 hours that night because COVID just wrecks your circulatory system. And there's so much fluid produced from that virus, like the lung. As we tried to aspirate the lungs, it was on and on and on. So each case is really specific to the decedent. But Kristi's pretty fast.
I have been. But then sometimes you do, like when we did the gravity embalming for the surgical reality cadavers, that can take 2 days.
Because that's a specialty. That's not something that you'll see in a funeral home, though.
The words you are using are
right.
fascinating and horrifying somehow at the same time.
Yes.
Let's go back to you said blockage.
Yes, blood clots.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
which
so you're
cannot look like little. Everybody always thinks they're like discs or like little round things. It can look like an eel. I've pulled things out of people that look like snakes. like super long.
okay. That's strike 2 for me. Kristi, you said gravity embalming.
Gravity embalming uses the capillary action of the body's circulatory system itself, and you basically just put the fluid up high, and it drains through the body, like,
It's a diffusion process.
yeah, and it takes a lot longer, but for certain things it's better. It just depends. Um, for the cadavers that we make that are for dissection, that are surgical reality, which is like a special process. It really preserves them very realistically, and they can go without refrigeration, and they can last for up to 2 years. And that you can do that quickly with a machine, or you can do it gradually with gravity. And I want to say that 48 hours is the longest that one took. But
And that you had rigged that thing up from the ceiling, right? I remember when
yeah,
you did that.
MacGyvered it, yeah, with
Yeah.
some stuff, with some tubing from the Home Depot. It was a really shopping trip.
Whatever it takes.
So, how much of this stuff is sort of special to the trade, and how much of this is a trip to Bed Bath and Beyond?
It's all mostly
And no,
straight.
I was not paid to mention them.
I think it's all pretty special to the trade, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah,
The
So-
Home Depot trip was a rarity.
That
Yeah,
was a
that-
special,
that was-
special thing.
They were experimenting. We do a very limited, you will not get it in a funeral home because we work in an educational setting. We do what's called surgical reality embalming. In the process that she's talking about, you can only lift one vessel because you want to keep the body as intact as possible. And it's a saturation process, and it's almost like a curing. And these specimens are used for medical training, both civilian and military. No Bed Bath and Beyond. There's a serious lack of potpourri happening.
But it sounds like there should be
Yeah,
God.
maybe it's
so much.
just a Yankee Candle in the
yeah.
corner.
Oh,
They try to put sense in some of that stuff, and it just I don't think it's very effective.
That's true. They do try to fruit flavor some of that fluid.
oh God. I was thinking something like, I don't know, the beach.
Nope, grape is very popular. Grape is extremely popular.
I was gonna say, yeah. Do you ever sit around and you're like, am I in an orchard? What is this?
Where's
I
the
mean-
wine?
I'm surprised they haven't gotten into that, like a seasonal thing. You could have cinnamon in the fall. You go to like
Pumpkin
an
spice
evergreen.
embalming.
Yeah,
Pumpkin spice
exactly.
embalming. Oh, well, there you go. When this podcast goes to shit, that'll be our
Yeah.
next venture.
Yeah, write that down. We got to copyright that.
Yes, exactly. What's it like when you go home at night? Do any of these people stay with you? Can you shut it off? Do they haunt you, literally or figuratively? Any of that?
You would think they would haunt us because we do have a show called Dead Girls Talking. Like, we have a podcast that we talk about a lot of weird stuff. And I've worked in more funeral homes than Kristi's worked in. I'm going to say no. I've never been haunted, but you do remember. So working in a funeral home environment, I've dealt with some children, some of those cases, and that's very difficult because I have children.
Mhm.
So those are the ones you kind of think about. We have seen in our educational setting, we've seen some bodies that came in and you're like, this doesn't look what the cause of death, like this
Yeah.
cause of death that is on this death certificate does not look like what's on this table. And
Yeah.
so we've actually retroacted, like the other day I had one and I called the hospital. I was like, there is absolutely no way that this person died from what this doctor said. I really need you to check the chart. And they were really pissy about it because they're, hospital staff. Love you guys, but you know how you get. And I was right. Like, they had mixed up the chart.
Wow.
So I'm personally not haunted by any of this stuff. Like, it's hard. We had someone who, Kristi, you helped out with those kids that were in the car accident, right? Those teenagers. So we had a really rough case, and these teenagers from, I believe, Virginia got into a horrific car accident, and 2 of them were decapitated.
Mm.
And the family, the funeral home that the family hired is affiliated with our program, our college program. And that level of reconstruction, they were not prepared to do. So they brought it to us. And so our mentor, who is amazing, we worked on these, I think we just had the one kid, but we had to reattach a head. And I did
Right.
think about that one for a while, just
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
we had to get extremely inventive and remain extremely sensitive to what was going on.
Right.
There are a couple of them that like, I mean, I remember people's names and their faces. I wouldn't say that it is haunting, but like I tend to remember the faces of the people or the names of the people that I dealt with at the school.
Mhm.
And there've been a couple of them that are really, like sad, and you wonder, how did this person end up? There's that element. I mean, they're always like, you always see them as a human being, but like, as far as does it bother me when I get home, or does it mess with me? Luckily, no, it does not.
Well, you were super moved by that Huntington girl, the girl
Hmm.
who died from Huntington's disease.
Yeah.
And that really
Mm.
bothered you so
Well,
much so.
that's because I kept talking to her mama on the phone, and it was so sad. The girl was so young, and the lady was so nice. That one was kind of a hard one, but we ended up taking, like, that was when Minda and I ended up going and taking the ashes to the girl's grandmother, because she was not able to drive to Fayetteville to get them. And that was nice. Like, we got to actually like see
The
people
family.
helping. Yeah, that was cool.
And you probably don't get that sense of the overused phrase of closure usually.
Mm-mm. Not you.
Well, that's not our job. Like,
Right.
our job is not to mourn with you. Our job is to support you while you mourn.
Yeah.
Right.
So
How does the body in front of you, do you have that sort of disconnect where it becomes a
Ace?
math problem, something that you're
Yes.
looking at and just trying
Yeah.
to like take away the humanity of it as much as you can, knowing that it will inevitably creep back in?
I don't know that consciously taking away the humanity of it is an aspect of it, but like I
Mm.
said, if you have a decedent who is extremely difficult to embalm, you never forget that they're a person, but sometimes you can get really mad at someone for having a terrible circulatory system.
Dang it,
Mm.
And so
better carry yourself.
Yeah. super pissed about it. And so, I mean, every case is a case. And I knew a doctor one time, and he said, like, when he was doing surgery on someone's shoulder, your whole focus is on that shoulder, and you kind of forget all the rest of around this shoulder that is a person still. We are taught in school, you have to keep in the back of your mind, you always have to envision that person's family in the room with you while you work, because preserving dignity is like the number one thing in the industry, and that is what they teach. Dignity is a big thing in our world. Several funeral companies are called Dignity.
Yeah.
To hammer it home.
Mhm.
Is it fun ever?
Yeah, it can be.
Are you
fun.
able to strike that balance between sort of preserving the dignity of the person you're working with and enjoying work?
Depends on what music you have playing. That's very peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like people that enjoy cleaning. It's like you start and you finish all in one fell swoop. And there's a really, and it can be fun. I mean, it's not going to be super lively, but it is nice to, again, if it's an easy 1 point, like we only have to lift one vessel, and
Yeah.
it can be soothing, and it's you do a job well done. So I don't know if fun is the right word, but
Right.
it's satisfying.
So
It is fine. Yeah.
what's the go-to playlist?
That depends on who you're Kristi. Go ahead. She's our music girl.
I don't know. I always I feel like maybe the music that I listen to is not everybody's preference, because I tend to be like the goth industrial grandma, but we would alternate, like
90s hip hop was pretty fun sometimes. We had that a lot.
like soul, old soul, and R&B, like
Perfect for every occasion.
It's probably a lot less Black Sabbath than you'd imagine.
Mm.
yeah.
Because it's just like your workflow.
And now, Minda, you said, you're talking about the embalming. What's the other aspect? Is it the makeup, for lack of a better term?
Well, funeral service it's the marriage of a lot of things. So if you're strictly talking about the back of the house, you've got the embalming process, and then you've got what's called casketing. And so
Mhm.
that is where you dress the decedent, and then you could do the cosmetic and do the hair. And I've done that a lot more simply because I've worked in funeral homes.
Mhm.
And then you have, of course, the front of the house where you are dealing with families and the planning and payment and things like that.
And you always see in the news these stories of people who want a certain type of funeral. The stories of the family that puts a beer in the casket. What's the weirdest one you've seen? And I understand weird being a subjective term. And
Well, I worked at a really affordable funeral firm in a large city, a couple down the road from where we live. And so we saw a lot of business. And I don't know if it's weird, but I really thought it was phenomenal. We had a Hispanic family had lost someone, and they hired a taco truck and brought it out to the parking lot. And so that was happening. And they had a bounce house out there in the parking lot during the funeral.
oh,
And then inside there was 3 like elderly mama, grandma ladies singing Pink Floyd's "I Wish You Were Here" in broken English, playing guitar. And I loved it. Like I was
That's
that
there for it.
sounds,
I
yeah.
kind of want that for my funeral. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I've seen some beautiful funerals. I've seen, because in the Hindi culture they do active cremation,
Mhm.
and that's the only time I've ever seen a family in the crematory. They do the ceremony prior, like they have their person in our area. They use the chapel, and the family came in, and there was tons of flowers, and they spent a lot of time placing things in the cremation container with the decedent. And then when it was time, everybody went into, and that's not normal. Like you're not really only, this has to be very special. Everyone had gone back into the actual crematory, and the eldest son hit the button, and we all stood there while the person went down into the retort. So I don't know. I'm pretty weird, so it's really hard to get like what's the weirdest out of me.
Right. No, but I mean, you know,
Non-traditional. I've seen a lot of non-traditional stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what is it? What do you mean by that? What makes
Well, the
it
taco
non?
truck is pretty
Well, no,
non-traditional.
bounce
Yeah.
house
Right.
definitely puts you in that column, certainly. Now with open casket, there's always I feel like a lot of times it's kind of from waist up. Do you put pants and shoes on people?
Yes.
Okay.
But the thing is, you have to remind the family to bring the shoes and the socks. Usually, they'll bring pants, but but we hear that a lot. Like, why are we giving you shoes? It's like, well, please bring underwear as well.
Yeah.
Bring the underwear for your loved one.
Because I do think if you don't bring the underwear as the family member, you're going to think about that forever, that you buried them without underwear.
Now, if they
I
didn't,
really do feel that. Well, you're right. If they didn't wear underwear, then don't bury them with underwear, because
but
that's
make sure
rude.
the funeral director knows that, or else they'll
Right.
just slap, especially down here in the South.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't want to be bored without your panties on.
True. That's true.
They told the family wanted the person cremated naked, and the funeral home told them that they were not allowed to cremate people naked because they were
Really?
Yeah, they were like, well, you find that a lot with like non-traditional, non-Christian people.
We have friends that are death workers that are also pagan,
Mm-hmm.
and they face an uphill battle breaking traditional views and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that something that is across the industry, or is that something, as you mentioned, like that's more so in the South, or?
I don't know. Probably
We draw from the South, so that's hard for us to
Yeah.
answer.
No, that's fair. That's totally fair.
I know that I have friends on the West Coast that when I've talked about the gender equality issue, she said that it's not nearly as bad out there as it is down here.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't even think about that. I just always think about when someone passes away in our family, that it's always, you want to do their wishes and whatever their wishes would be.
They better have them written down.
Yeah. I got a lot of people in my family that might want to be cremated naked, so I gotta make sure that's okay.
The affordable option.
Yeah.
Well, but your uncle would be in the cow costume, right?
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Or Speedo.
2 words for you. Kiss casket. Have you seen one? No.
What's another word for it? What's it look
No,
like?
I'm
No,
saying
as in like
Is
Gene
it-
Simmons.
the Kiss copyright patent
Oh,
pending.
no.
You
No.
have not. Okay. I was always just wondering, you know.
Well, what does it look like?
Probably garish and airbrush lightning bolts.
Hmm.
That sounds bad as fuck.
We
Yeah,
probably
no,
have a lot of them in Detroit.
Yeah. Well,
We
you're
are
Detroit Rock City. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yes.
So
I have
how-
seen a pretty horrifying casket at a convention. It was all wrapped in realtree. And I was like, oh God, here we are.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Want pink glitter personally.
Pink
want
glitter
pink?
would be cool. Yeah.
I don't want
So-
anything. I want a green burial.
Actually, yeah, I think I'm donating myself to be a surgical reality cadaver.
Wow. Well, yeah, you've lived it on the other side.
And that was going to be my next question. Sort of, how has this changed your outlook on death?
So are you asking how it's changed how we want to be buried or how we live our lives?
I would say both.
Yeah.
I don't want to be embalmed. So, but I'm a super proponent of green burial. Like even when I was in
Mhm.
college, I used to write a lot of papers about it and things like that. And I don't know that changed anything. I will certainly say that going into the funeral industry in my late 30s did change how I lived in my life because I was like, well, I'm going to start taking a lot more risk. I'm going to say yes a lot more because I was burying a lot of younger people than me. And so, but I'm kind of like, let's just fucking do it. All right, let's go. And then that just became stronger.
Yeah.
And then I'll take people with me. I'm like, Kristi, come on. We're doing this.
It definitely, like we joke about death is coming, eat the ice cream. You know, it definitely made me more likely to try things and take risks, and because you're going to die regardless.
You can listen more to Minda and Kristi on their podcast, Dead Girls Talking, which you can find wherever you normally get your podcasts. And for more information, you can check them out on Facebook, where they are at facebook.com/dead-girls-talking-podcasts.
You can follow us on all the various socials. Our website is whythepodcast.com and has all sorts of additional stories and videos. It's also where you can sign up for our newsletter. We're also on YouTube if you're into that kind of thing. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, because if you don't, we'll call your mother and tell her that she's completely right. You would look so much prettier if you smiled more.
Why the Podcast is part of Mudhouse Media. Today's show was produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing executive producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mustonen. The theme song was performed by the Electrosynth-O-Magnetic Polyphonic Orchestra. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?